Hello and welcome back. And in this session, we are talking about investment for deployment of CCAM. For connected and automated driving to be widely deployed, there needs to be a shared vision among public and private stakeholders at different levels. So regional, national, European and international. And there needs to be agreement on necessary investments in infrastructure, equipment, general financial and human resources. So we are going to discuss what is the trigger for investment. Is it political vision? Is it a local issue to be solved? Is it a sustainable business case, or is it a mix of these things or other things as well? So really want to get into the whole detail behind the investment part of this whole issue. So let me introduce our panelists. We are delighted to have with us Christel Fiorina, who is the Deputy Director, Public Road Network and Traffic Management at the French Ministry of Transport. And she's also Chair of the Steering Committee for Sea Roads Platform, which brings together cooperative ITS services in Europe. Hello, Christel.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, good to see you. Eckard Steiger is the Director of Industrial Corporations Automated Driving for Bosch. And I know that Bosch is involved in a number of European projects, so you will no doubt be able to tell us more about that. Hi, Eckard.
Hello.
Jacqueline Erhart is team leader for CCAD and digital infrastructure for ASFINAG, which is the operator of Austria's motorway and expressway system. And Jacqueline is also chair of the ITS working group and automated driving for the European Toll Operators Association. So hi, Jacqueline.
Good afternoon.
Herald Ruijters is from the European Commission, DG Move, Director for Investment, Innovative and Sustainable Transport. Hi, Herald.
Morning, good afternoon.
Hello. And well, it'll be morning for some of our people watching, so that's okay.
Indeed.
And then Carlo van der Weijer is General Manager for the Eindhoven AI Systems Institute, part of the Eindhoven University of Technology. Researcher, but I think you've worked in the industry for many years as well, Carlo. So you can give us all perspectives.
Yes, indeed, I do. I still have one leg in the industry, so good afternoon,
Okay.
or good
Right.
whatever part of the day you're in.
Well, that's what it's all about, partnership, and you're a partnership in one man, so that's fine. So let's have a little start off now. We'll do a round, really very short, just a couple of minutes for each person. But I want to get a general view on from your perspective, the importance of investment in the deployment of CCAM. So I'm going to start with Christel Fiorina to give a member state perspective, find out what's happened in France in terms of investment so far, and also what's being planned in the future, and based on what sort of vision and what sort of priorities, why are these investments happening?
Thank you very much for that very acute question. We do think in France, and on the perspective of the French government, that the sector of transport is not only strategic but fundamental for the economy and for the society. And it's also fundamental for Europe, because we think that the transport infrastructure is the backbone of the European Union. And from the political point of view, it makes possible the freedom of movement. And from an economic point of view, the roads connect territories, decision-making centers, citizens, and even companies. And on the other hand, we see that the sector of transport is currently facing a huge challenge of digital transformation. It's the same for industry, but it's very accurate in the sector of transport. And we do believe in France that we must have not only a French strategy on that, a French strategy of green and digital mobility, but only a European one. Because as I said, our roads are interconnected, and we realize with that infrastructures the liberty of freedom and the wealth of our economy on the continent. And that's why France has been involved for nearly 10 years in many great projects co-financed by the European Commission, such as Scoop, Sea Roads, and Indeed. And that's why also, if I speak about the digital part of the job and the digital position of the French government, we also work on the European strategy on data and the European strategy in AA, for instance, because there are strong link between that strategy and the strategy in the mobility. Now we have in France a network of 3,000 kilometers equipped with ITS G5 terminals, technology Wi-Fi, and our technologies also are hybrid with the cellular, the 4G now, and tomorrow the 5G. And we have to face also that challenge of the arrival of a new technology such as 5G. And I think that in France we are currently in a movement, in a dynamic that bring together all the players of the intelligent mobility, smart mobility, the states, of course, but also the cities, the car manufacturers, the road equipment manufacturers, the startups of technology, and also the researchers in France. But we also act as a European member, as an active partner in the C-Roads platform, because as you said, we are a strong member of that platform, and we have always a strategic vision that lead our national politic with the rest of Europe, with our European partners.
Thank you very much indeed. So sort of a very strong European message there. Eckard, Steiger from Bosch, give us the industrial perspective, if you would. I mean, why Bosch is investing in CCAM, what is its vision, investment so far, and how you see the future?
Yeah, so it's quite clear for us, for Bosch, starting with Bosch, automated driving is a strategic business area. And at least from our company, total investments remain very high. And this is one important reason that we for sure target to deploy technology as soon as possible and realize a broad access for the benefit of all for these technologies. Practically speaking, meaning that development of technology to serious maturity is key, because of this big investments. But to make this happen, we believe that, and we see also practically, collaboration is key. We need collaboration. Just looking at the example about safe and safety deployment, we need common approaches to validate the safety of the technologies and to improve safety in traffic. And that's the main motivation, or one main motivation, to participate and invest also in this common CCAM or CCAM activities here. And we see also ahead strong needs for additional investments. And that's one main reason that we are also invest strongly in the future in CCAM.
Thank you very much. So there is a strong business imperative, but of course alongside it it's the safety aspects and working alongside other people. So thank you for that. Jacqueline, Erhart, the road operator perspective, the priority investments, the importance to invest in infrastructure. I mean, we were hearing in our last session how obviously the life cycle of infrastructure is much longer than vehicles, for instance. So you perhaps sort of slightly at odds with what's going on in the vehicle manufacturing sector.
Definitely, we see that we need partnerships to exactly underline and match the different roadmaps we have in different industries. But I think which is really important to mention that CCAM has a variety of different aspects which are of relevance to road operators. In the beginning of autonomous vehicle development, I think the role of road operators was a little bit neglected. But as Eckard already mentioned, if we think about a safe system approach, we need also to consider the responsibilities of road operators on road safety and traffic management. So road operators are in general, or have always been, innovators when it comes to digitalization. Christina mentioned the C-Roads initiative to deploy cooperative intelligent transport systems, where ASFINAG and ASCAP members really strongly were involved. But if we really want to follow up our common European vision of zero fatalities and zero emission, we need together with other industry partners to foster the next steps towards CCAM. So in fact, what we at ASFINAG in Austria are doing, we are strongly supporting the deployment of the first generation of safety use cases on a common and open channel, and they go already into operation right now. So we are actively involved in road safety now, but we are also working on the next generation of services supporting automated driving functionality. So we are already facing that something new is coming up and that we are also part of it and that we want to cooperate. And especially this support of digital infrastructure we can offer and we want to offer, because we want all the vehicles to be included in a mixed traffic environment, which we are responsible for to manage. And that's an important point. And additional, we really see a lot of technological challenges which we cannot tackle on our own. We see the digitalization of road management data, where of course road operators have a big role into it. But we also need improvement of sensor technologies, smart algorithm, a lot of AI, a lot of new services and the way we manage human drivers right now, which we need right now to also advise the machines working on our roads to handle different traffic situations. So we see that we need together to work on implementing safe and secure cooperative services for CCAM, and that we also really need to address them right now. We are on a good way, but we need all to stay together and continue our work on the next generation of services in R&D and also in deployment projects.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And obviously that staying together is very much part of what the CCAM partnership is hoping to play a big role in. Herald Ruijters, from the EU perspective, what has been done so far through EU funding and how do you see the future developing?
Thank you, Kathy, and happy to be able to be with you. And indeed, as mentioned also by my Director General, Hendrik Holerlei, this morning, we have a new sustainable and smart mobility strategy, and the Commission's goal to make connected and automated multimodal mobility a reality, and to deploy, of course, also this automated mobility at large scale by 2030. And digitalization is really a lever there to realize this objective. So CCAM requires a common vision, a common agenda, but also coordinated investments, not only in R&I, but also for deployment. We need to consider infrastructure, develop new technologies, harmonize standards and specifications, test and validate pilots, update and develop our skills, and revise regulation when needed. So through the Connecting Europe facility, we have invested a lot over the last years, in particular accelerating in 2016 with the creation of the C-ROAS platform and the coordinated deployment in 18 member states of cooperative intelligent transport systems. We are now in the final preparation phase of the Connecting Europe Facility 2, and will continue to support ITS, CITS, and CCAM deployment through this instrument. And we will also revise the TEN-T regulation this year still and integrate the necessary evolutions triggered by digitalization. To make connected and automated modality a reality, the strategy includes also a revision of the ITS directive and of the related delegated regulations on real-time traffic information and on multimodal traffic information. So this revision considers also enlarging the geographical coverage and the data sets, as well as making the link between the data and the services. So it's very obvious there that we are going to be absolutely active. And of course, we will make then also the link with the CCAM partnership and with R&I activities, as we did in the CCAM platform so far. So the EU will be there as a partner from these different funding and financing sources, in particular the Connecting Europe Facility and the Horizon Europe program.
And you mentioned that you're active in 18 member states, not in all of them.
The Connecting Europe Facility is available, and it is available on a competitive call basis. And member states participate more and more. We started with a small group, and we are now happy to have 18 member states on board. But it's open to all 26, of course.
Okay, thank you. So, Carlo, research questions. Where should investment be focused on? Where should we be looking at putting money in terms of research?
Yeah, maybe not only in research, but in general terms, I think that that an investment also politically in CCAM is important, because mobility is at this moment far from a sustainable system. Actually, you can also make that financially. We are losing as a community, as a European Union, 3 to 4% of our gross domestic product, of our economy, to the negative effects of mobility. So otherwise put, if there would be no accidents, no traffic jams, no pollution, no whatsoever from mobility, no negative aspects, our economy would run 3 to 4% better. And more than half of that, I think 2/3 of that amount, is due to the limited safety. Apart from all the emotional damage, accidents cause a huge societal and economical damage. So that alone is already a political reason. And after that, of course, also pollution and traffic jams. We complain the most with traffic jams, but they're actually not that expensive. But okay, it all contributes to this enormous damage. So every euro spent on this one, especially if you get safer traffic, every euro spent you will deserve back as an economy 4 or 5 times. So that's well invested money, and that's a political reason in order to start investing. And also from an economical perspective, if you look at the industry, it's maybe not so much safety actually why people purchase or spend also extra money on these features in the future, but they will spend it because of comfort. There's also a lot of comfort coming with this kind of technology, which is an economical incentive in order to also start investing in and doing research in this area. I have a car that drives itself in a traffic jam. So actually my congestion problem is solved. The congestion is still there, but I don't have a problem with it anymore because I can do other stuff during. Once you have such an option in your car, you will never get a car without it. So that's actually the economical. So both on the economical side and political side, I see plenty of reasons to start investing in it. And it all starts with research and good fundamental research, of course.
Do you really think that comfort is one of the driving factors there? I mean, you know, we've talked more about things like inclusivity and the fact of providing services, you know, in areas that have not got public transport, for instance. And aren't you just talking sort of, you know, a rich man's view of automated driving?
Many of the technologies that in the long term will benefit everybody starts with richer people buying things for comfort. That's how we got televisions and mobile telephones and everything, actually. So we have to create volume in order to make it cheaper. But yes, I do follow all the other incentives, like indeed inclusivity of regions that you have a cheaper public transport. But that's not really, to my point of view, a real business case, because these kind of connections benefit from a driver, not only because he's driving, but also for social things and helping people in and out of vehicles and this kind of thing. So that's not really a business case. I really think the biggest business case in the beginning is comfort and extra services for people. The good thing is that once you buy these kind of features in your car, you also have the better safety systems, because that come with the same technology, and you will have also safer cars. So that's a win-win combination in order to stimulate. And that's also a reason why we should stimulate these kind of technology being uptaken. Yes, it's more comfortable, but it's by way also far safer. And that should be focus number one in the European Union.
But do you think then that different sectors are going to be driven by different incentives, if you like? You know, that industry will be going more in terms of maybe the comfort thing and thinking that they can provide some super duper car for people. But the politicians are going to be looking, be driven by figures like you give us, 3 to 4% of GDP is a negative side of mobility as it is today.
Yes, indeed. There's always will be different interests, but that has always been the case with all kind of technology. When we have catalyst converters, there were not real reasons for the industry to invest in that, so we had to force them in order to buy them. But the nice thing is with this kind of technology, it cuts on both sides, because it's a more comfortable, more easily sellable car, but also a safer car at the other side. So that's the nice thing about CCAM, that it works on both sides.
Okay, let me bring Christel Fiorina back on that in terms of what you think will drive investment. I mean, do you think what Carlo was just saying is correct, that there will be different drivers depending on what perspective you come from?
Well, obviously, you have diverse incentives and diverse criteria to define such a policy, because for our minister, for the government, and even for the European Commission, as Herald said, we are leading public policies about transport, and we know that we have to deal and to mix different considerations that are both economic, social, and also on the Green Deal, the New Deal about the transport. I told you that to me and for France, CCAM are fundamental as a fundamental dimension for the European Union, because it is strongly linked with the liberty, the freedom of movement, and it's one of the main pillars of the European construction. So we think, and I do think, that we have to integrate the issues of inclusion and ecological transition and so economic development in our understandings about that public policy. It's fundamental, but I would add a criterion you didn't mention before, and that is for us very important. It's the criterion of sovereignty, because you know that the sector of mobility, as the sector of the digital economy, widely speaking, is now facing a challenge of sovereignty, and it's very important for European Union also to have sovereignty on that. We must see that in the global competition, the European Union and the member states has led a third way in digital, respectful of the ethic, the human rights, the data protection. That thing is a strong sign, and we want to address to the other countries and the world about that, about our vision of the digital society tomorrow. And smart mobility is part of that, and CCAM also. That is to say, I think that the European Commission, the member states, but also the private stakeholders in Europe have to find that way in order to have a strong sovereignty of the development of transport in Europe. I think that criterion is very, very important.
And at the moment, do you think that Europe is managing to hold its place as a leader in this field? I mean, we're having an international discussion in the next section of this event today. But I mean, where do you think that we are in relation to other areas of the world?
I think in the sector of transport that for the moment we don't address the issue so well, and I think that question of sovereignty is very taken in consideration, for instance, by the DigiConnect in the European Union, and in the digital economy. We know that we must face that challenge, but in the smart mobility, for the moment, I think that the market is currently disrupted by extra European companies, and we don't have a strong strategy on that, on the data.
Let me bring Eckard Steiger from Bosch in on this one then. How much is this an issue for you as a company, that keeping the kind of the European position in terms of competitiveness? Your microphone's muted, Eckard.
Yes, for sure. We look on the global perspective. We are also globally positioned, and we also have our relations to other areas of the world. But in the end, the main invest we are doing is in Europe. So we very critically look at this topic of the European competitiveness. Yeah. So if you ask maybe how to start, first I would like to underline what already Carlo said. Yeah. What we need, maybe in some other words, we need some kind of user acceptance of technologies to be deployed, which I just mentioned. It's close connection with the business case to the investments we do. We have to look on different motivations, and practically speaking, and I'm totally in line with what Carlo just mentioned, is we have to go positively on these technologies, and also comfort is a real and realistic motivation for such products made available for the market, and this will bring other benefits like competitiveness and also the safety contributions. Yeah. And looking on this, yeah, I'm on the point, looking at the global perspective, maybe. How to say, yeah. For sure, we are in some kind of competition here about when we talk about these kind of use cases, when talking about automated driving. We know there are other global players, maybe more or less data-driven companies. Yeah, they have some advantages. Yeah, and one key technology we are talking about to make automated vehicles happen is data-driven technologies. Yeah, use data from the fleets, make them available for the for example, for the improvement of the systems of the products, and maybe there we have some kind of lack. Yeah. On the other technologies, I don't think we have, more positively said, we have advantages. We have to focus and we have to work together when talking about these, what was just mentioned, topics about safety, about data sovereignty. I think we have chances here to have some leading role here in the world.
Okay, thank you very much. Jacqueline, from the road operator's perspective then, what do you think really is the main driver of investment from your perspective?
I mean, we see really a mix-up of different aspects of it. We see on the one hand, of course, the political dimension of having a reliable, sustainable, digitalized road traffic system, which has to be standardized and also harmonized in Europe. And of course, in developing the whole CCAM system towards those Green Deal, I think goals has a quite important role in investing in CCAM services. But on the other hand, and when we road operators always talk about CCAM, we have a big wish that's on the local operational level to safeguard our employees out there on the roads. So we have this vulnerable road user being safeguarded by CCAM technologies always in mind. And you cannot imagine how much accidents, even if they're not so severe, are happening on our roads. And technology can help us to protect those people and also maybe the infrastructure equipment out there. And on the other hand, to see it from maybe a business case dimension, I see for road operators the big opportunity of data exchange, having open communication channels, that there are vehicles out there which are a kind of sensors. So we have right now a lot of sensor technology infrastructure out there to count traffic, to classify the traffic out there, to apply proper traffic management. But we think if we also can benefit from the moving sensors out there, we see a solid business case in it. And of course, really, road safety is a big driver for us, but also developing more and more kind of opportunities to a little bit steer the traffic towards a greener behavior is also a factor which we are interested in.
It's always multifactorial. I mean, from the Commission's point of view, Herald Ruijters, is it possible to say which is the main driver, Herald? Or I mean, when you hear about the importance of European competitiveness, or is it the Green Deal that is uppermost in your mind? What's the priority?
Thank you. Yeah, indeed, I think today the Green Deal is most on my mind. I mean, this morning at 5:05, after a whole night of negotiations, the climate law was adopted by the Parliament and the Council after the proposal made last year by the Commission. So this means that as of today, we have fixed in law 55% at least reduction. So I fully agree with Carlo when he was speaking about comfort and about safety. But I was happy also to hear that the green aspect. So the green is a key component because we have to, of course, become a carbon neutral continent by 2050. And I think we can only do that if we really take the full potential of digitalization and automation to become cleaner, safer, resilient and inclusive. So indeed, if you would ask me to conclude, I think these different views, political, but also operational and economic dimensions, they should be combined. and they should be translated into concrete measures. And that's, I think, what CCAM should be about. So, yeah.
It also has to be long-term, though, doesn't it? Because there has to be some certainty from all the different players in this, and in the terms of planning and.
Yeah. Thank you, Cathy. If you allow me to come back to the subject of this specific panel, which is the long-term funding agenda, and there we really need to have a common funding agenda. I mean, we have, of course, these partnerships and instruments, like I said before, the Connecting Europe Facility and Horizon Europe, and they are multi-annual planning instruments, and they encourage, of course, also then the investments at national level, at regional level, at local level. So there is then complementarity through the annual, let's say, cycle that we have put in place, and which is starting again this year in 21 until 27, and a long-term agenda, a long-term funding agenda, of course, that leverages for all, like also for Bosch and for other companies, the visibility and stability that is needed. Otherwise, we will not get them on board.
Thank you. Well, let's just sort of try and hear some success stories and hear how some funding initiatives have really made a difference. Maybe, Christel, you have an example you could give us.
Yes, maybe. I just want to answer to Herald on that, on the point of the Green Deal. I think it's part of our European strategy for sovereignty, because it's one we can lead on the diplomatic point of view, a great action on that. And to me, it's very important also to affirm that our economy is strongly oriented toward the ecological transition. It's important because I think it's also a level of competitiveness for our industries and our business companies. But also we have to, in that case, ensure a level playing field in Europe, especially against products and services that are not produced in the same condition in Europe and that are very high in carbon production, So I think that we must have also a debate on that and on the level playing field in Europe for that. To come back to the question you asked me, Cathy, I think if I can mention it, that to me a great success is the C-Road platform, the European one, C-Road platform with that 18 countries bring together to work on common projects, on use case, and to develop that interconnected network. I think it's very important to continue with that C-Road platforms and to have other projects on that, because you know that some projects are ending at the end of the year, and to have financing about that, to continue to interconnect our road networks. Because I think that the European C-Roads platform demonstrates that the ambitious objective of deploying the connected road network within 2050 is a perfectly achievable goal. And for me, I'm very proud to chair that platform, because I think it's a great project with a great ambition and a great wish, a great willing to work together. I would say that the other main project, I think, would be the European data spaces for mobility. Maybe that there has been a call for project from the European Union to interconnect also the data platforms, and I think that the future is also to have that kind of data spaces to help our technologies and our enterprises to develop and to train the algorithms in a context in which you see that extra European big companies are trusted the data. So I think we have also to work on that within the European Union, with the member states, but also with the companies and other stakeholders, to make that data as a petrol of our technologies and of our European economy.
And are these projects and platforms bringing in extra investment because of being able to give a sort of an evidence base to what they're trying to do? I mean, because obviously we're talking about investment. Are they making a difference in terms of the amount of money that then is coming in from other sources?
yes, in my opinion, it makes a difference, and the financing of European Union makes a difference because it's, for me, a lever of investment for private companies. And as I can see in the projects I lead in France, that's true that the private partners are willing to work with us because we have this lever of public investment, and we see in that lever, that public financing, that we have a vision, we offer a vision, and we offer also to the private sector we demonstrate that we have an ambition on that, and that we think that it can work.
Yeah, that's good. And so, Carlo, well, how about you? Can you give us sort of a sense of, again, some investment in a project or a success story that is really kind of changing things and being a catalyst, if you like?
Yeah, maybe one example that is very often overseen, which is a very successful introduction of smart mobility, is actually the traffic information and connected navigation that we already have for quite a long time. It started with the RDS TMC in the beginning, that we had much more decent traffic information than otherwise. But now we have, through the connected navigation, everybody knows at least what they can expect when they start driving. And that was 50 years ago. You just went on your trip and you haven't got a clue what your arrival time were. And people often forget that has happened in 15 years. And that's a very nice lessons learned from practice, where it was a cooperation between companies that started developing and also the regulating authority, that in the beginning thought that if everybody would take their individual optimum, that would lead to chaos. But in the end, it appeared to be a much safer system. And then now you see it's a very good public-private cooperation, where all these companies use the traffic information on road closures and road works and all these kind of things, and take them into their commercial fleet and then spread it over the people so that everybody knows it. I think that's a very good example. By the way, an example where Europe always has been leading. So.
Is that the point, that we need to be creating European champions? I mean, I know you're, I think, a frequent, or used to be a frequent visitor to Silicon Valley. I mean, you won't have been for a while. But, you know, is this what we're trying to do in the world of connected and automated driving? Should we be creating European champions?
Yes, in the end we do, and it has been already said before. If we something have to invest in as well, it's on who owns this data, and what if other companies come in, drive around with their cars and grab all the data that's there in Europe and consider it to be theirs? I know from companies there are certain vehicles that are just constantly monitoring with their cameras everything. You only have to have access to 1% of all the vehicles, and you have a real life kind of Google Street View. That, of course, is of huge value. Now, do we want this to happen without being controlled? And I think the answer is very clear to that. And these are the new things that we have to be concerned of. But we cannot just simply say we are not going to do it, because then we also we won't benefit from the huge technology improvements.
Let me bring Eckard here from the Bosch perspective, because, I mean, when we're talking about investment, we are talking huge amounts of money that is necessary, aren't we, to really deploy CCAM? So, I mean, large amounts of money. So, you know, how do we make sure that Europe doesn't get edged out?
Good question. So, what I believe, maybe just also following my dear colleagues just talking about this data thing, maybe see also big investments needed there. What we need first, maybe it's not a kind of European champion, but we need some kind of European lighthouse, how to deal with it, how to set these up, this economy, how to share data under the fairness rules somehow. And just to underline what Christel said, I think we also, as Bosch, we believe also in activities like what we call, I think its project is called Gaia X, and we just want to make it happen, a fair deal and the use of data, for example, to improve the use case mobility, CCAM and safety. that's the right way, my understanding, with the common understanding here, to set the rules, the global rules somehow, to make use of this. Yeah. And in the end, also the companies like ours will have to invest a lot of money for sure as companies, but to get this under fair conditions, under fair competition, we need these kind of activities on a European level, like just mentioned Gaia X or this European project setting the rules. Yeah. Maybe this is a kind of way we see a realistic chance to set these kind of standards. Yeah.
And Jacqueline, from the road operator perspective, what's the biggest barrier, do you think, when it comes to getting investment and funding? What problems do you run into?
Well, we would be interested in which are the real requirements of infrastructure of the future, because you've mentioned it in the very beginning. When we invest in infrastructure, in physical infrastructure, we have much longer development and deployment roadmaps than vehicles have. So we see a great potential in the digitalization, because maybe if we invest right now in, for example, lane markings, who can tell us that those kind of lane markings will also be sufficient in 5 years. So in Austria, our way how we deal with that is that we really invest a lot in R&D when it's about finding the right digital services to support autonomous vehicles. And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles we have. What is the right technology in the sense of which kind of services do we need? Because we believe in the cooperative intelligent transport systems, and we believe that we can find this harmonized European approach in further developing this system.
There's a question here that's actually for Herald Ruijters, but I'm going to ask it to you first of all, Jacqueline, because it's somebody's asking about the whole issue of inclusiveness and not leaving people behind, and how will we be sure that investments and associated standards will not delay CCAM in cities and rural roads because of the focus on motorway issues, including the lane markings, which is the reason I ask you that, because you talked about lane markings. So sort of concerned that the emphasis is too much on motorways.
I think we have to consider also the Zero Roads initiative has started on motorways. So we have developed road safety use cases and the full ecosystem on motorways. But now we have the follow-up Zero Roads 2 project, and we see that we can really bring up all the use cases and even extend them in the rural and in the urban environments. So it can be even a kind of speeding up topics in starting with on an environmental area where it is easier to apply new technologies and emerging technologies. It's
learn your lessons. You can learn your lesson. I mean, Herald Ruijters, the question was directed to you, so I will ask it to you. What's your view on that then? That too much emphasis on motorways and other bits left behind potentially.
Yeah, no, I can see where the question is coming from, but I generally think that we are very, very, let's say, eager to have a just transition, not only for this, but for many of the things in our EU policies. Jacqueline is right. I mean, it is, of course, starting from motorways and later on going to the more difficult environments. I remember that Carlo once showed the very complex environment in the city of Amsterdam, where all the people are just crossing, and you cannot then let's say master such a complex situation. So we need to start. It's a little bit like what Carlo was also saying in the beginning. You start to build up your business case, and you do that also with connected and automated. But we're now rolling out more broadly. And also another point. I mean, some of these systems are already in place in part, and for instance, they are in place also in model cars, which are, I would say, at the lower end of range. I mean, the Golf Volkswagen, for instance, has such systems on board. So I'm just mentioning one. So yeah, I think we are generally going towards these systems being deployed overall. And you also see, for instance, that the ADAS systems, which has been in the beginning such luxury, are now into the legislation of our colleagues in DG GROW for general type approval of all vehicles. So, and that is also, I think, what Eckard was saying from Bosch's side. We need to know, I stress it as well, long term, we want to get at that specific point. Short term, we start by motorway. Short term, we start by specific systems on certain levels of automation. And I agree with my previous speakers that the data question will be the key one, the real cracker or the crunch to make.
Yeah, for sure, data. Let me ask, Carlo, I'm going to put this question to you. I'm not going to put this to Herald because I know that what his answer will be, but where is it? Europe is a continent with a large variety of national stakeholders, cultures and environments. Is it a threat or an opportunity?
Yeah, we are kind of stubborn people and indeed a lot of culture combined, but I tend to like that because we can combine also the strength of different regions with that. So actually the thing is that if we can have something that operates in Europe, it can operate around the world. If the United States develops something that only works in the United States, it's the question if it also works in the rest of the world. And the same goes for large countries in Asia. So to my point of view, I think it might be a little bit more difficult to develop something, but once we have achieved it, it can be rolled out over the world, and that's an example. That's an advantage as I can see it. So
right. Okay.
I think we can be a little bit proud there.
Okay. Question here. Investments in roads are often this. I'll put this to Jacqueline. Investments in roads are often justified on time saving and reduced congestion. However, CCAM's improved. I'm reading it from here and it's jumping around. I've lost it now. Investments in roads are often justified on time saving and reduced congestion. However, CCAM's improved reliability, that's sure arrival times, congestion, an outmoded concept. So how does this affect the costing of roads? So we no longer have to worry about we no longer have to worry about those other elements. Are you able to see that question, Jacqueline?
Yes, it's a very good question, and I want to mention that we are all just aware that autonomous driving will not be there with a penetration rate of 100% tomorrow. So we will always have a kind of roadmap towards the full traffic system of just autonomous mobility. So we have definitely a mixed traffic system. So some of the incentives of better travel times or less congestion is just based on a very good traffic management system. So that's still one of our aspects which we consider. And I think that have to be always in mind, and especially road safety is one of our biggest topics, at least. We do a lot of investments in road safety, and we are doing quite well on Europe's motorways, or tolled motorways especially. There I have the numbers. So we even hope that CCAM can even support us in having really the Vision Zero reached soon.
Yeah.
Let me. Sorry, did someone else want to come in on that question? No, not specific. No.
Not really. Maybe one small thing, but what is said that if indeed CCAM and traffic congestion, it might reduce traffic congestion. But if you solve traffic congestion, it's not that people are shorter on the way; they will travel further. And so you should also always think about what problem are you really solving. Like automated vehicles in cities, you don't want that because you don't need driverless cars in the cities. You want carless drivers in the cities, people using public transport or preferably bikes. And the same goes actually with solving traffic congestion. Yes, you will solve traffic congestion, which is on itself a good thing, but it doesn't help with more greener Europe because people will just travel further if their travel time being reduced. And so for CO2, it doesn't really add a lot of value. I just want to mention that because it's not a solution to everything.
Yeah, and in fact, somebody's asking a question about whether we actually need more roads or more railways, since road transport accounts for 70% of CO2 emissions. Of all 30% transport represents in the EU. Do we need more roads or more better, more flexible railways connecting Europe? Christel, Fiorina, I know you've got wonderful trains in France, but should we be concentrating more on rail than road? I think I can see Carlo shaking his head. I'll come to you afterwards.
I would say that I'm in favor of the end of the battle between the train and the road, because I think that one major advantage of CCAM and CITS is to make it possible the multimodality. Sorry. So it's not a question of do we want to build more roads. I think that in some parts of the territory we need maybe some roads, but we need to provide a service of multimodality that can bring you as a driver to know where is the next parking in order to take your train, and at least to go in the center of the city with your bike. That is the new problem. It's not the opposition of the roads and the train. You know, we must combine. We must go through that debate between the two modes.
Okay, Carlo.
Yeah, very short. I already reacted on that's once you have cars electrified and they're even safer than now. There's no single reason to make a shift to rail. So making this the year of the rail in Europe is, to my point of view, a waste of time and money. But no, that's a lost case at this point. So, but that's maybe a different discussion than this one. But CCAM actually, if you would do that as a next step of development, it's another reason why the investment in trains is not the most sensible thing anymore. Especially if you also include the huge amount of cost for infrastructure. So that's not a good business case.
Mm-hmm. There's a question here. Maybe I'll put this to Herald. If we're looking at the USA, a small startup raises tens of millions of dollars. Once again, as soon as I start talking about it, it moves because here we go. So a small startup raises tens of millions of dollars to work on a small part of the whole system. In the CCAM partnership, we're speaking about fundings of up to 400 million euros. Is this amount at the level of our ambitions? Herald? I think your microphone's off. Is it?
No, sorry. If the amount is sufficient, is not, I think, so clear cut by such a, I would say, figure. What we do with this figure and what we try to do is to gather others who are co-funding with us on member state level or at a local level or from the industry. And I think that the partnership that we put in place now as well, following up on the platform, will allow to tie together other funding sources. So I'm not so much impressed whether it's a 400 or a 500. It is the joint effort that we are making, because we can combine the investments also with then legislation which will be needed at some point, because you can of course research for very long, but that you need to also then to put it into legislation in order to create the business environment for companies like Bosch and others to then also flourish on it. Yeah, okay. Good.
So I mean, you really need to get national, regional and private all working together.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, I think the lessons learned from the past is that the public-private partnerships that we have are really instrumental to get the whole agenda forward. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And I was very happy also with the reply from Christel on the rail and versus road issue. I just want to mention that I cannot leave it out, and happy to battle with Carlo on that on another occasion.
Thank you. Question here about...
Katie, please.
Yes, I'm
Katie,
sorry.
Please.
Sorry.
Just to a few comments on that. We had the same. I'm the former national coordinator of EA for the economy, and we had the same debate within artificial intelligence at the European level. I think that yes, if you see just the funding of the European Commission, it can it can be you can say yes, it's less than USA, but I think that we must at the level of the member states also indicate what are the public investment of the member states and the public collectivity, and you would see that bring together at the European level. I don't think that the comparison with USA is not in favor of Europe.
Okay, thank you. This is a question about congestion pricing, and maybe I will put it to Jacqueline first of all. Could CCAM be used to implement some form of efficient congestion pricing that can respond flexibly to traffic conditions and maybe even time preferences of passengers? So you prioritise those with less patience at a higher price. So is this something that potentially CCAM could do?
Well, I think we have to, or I have to mention that the DASACAP believes in the user pays principle. So so far we have our tolled motorways in Europe, and our business model is right now based on this efficient, sustainable financing model. How it will be in future, that will be an interesting question, but we always, I think, have to consider that it is user pays principle, and we also have I think to consider in our pricing models that CCAM might be a technology which can only be financed or can be used by or is a luxury good, and then will come to public usage. So all different aspects should be considered when we are talking about pricing and how pricing and business models can have an impact on our road transport systems.
Okay, thank you. We're sort of moving towards the end. I wonder whether I could ask you all to just, again, I mean, it might be a recap of something that you've said, but just really, what do we need to see to get the best amount of investment? What needs to happen to really bring in as much money as is needed to make CCAM a reality? Just very briefly, 30 seconds. It was probably something you said before, but just really to sort of just round up, if you like. Maybe Eckard from Bosch would like to start.
Yeah, it needs a national atmosphere and the support also by European institutions to deploy functions, new technologies to support, however, automated driving in different applications. Be open to technologies, to use cases, and get then technologies visible and tangible for the users. Thank you. And Christel?
I would say briefly that let's get ambitious. Let's create an innovative environment for smart mobility in Europe. Let's bring together our efforts, European Commission, member states, and all stakeholders, and let's go faster in the digital transformation of the sector.
So you don't think we're ambitious enough yet?
I would say that it's my personality. We are not. We are ambitious, but for me, we have to go faster. And
okay.
I would like my best wish would like to have European champions in that sector.
Jacqueline.
We need all stakeholders and work on the full ecosystem. I think I can just support Christel. We need to be faster. We need to work together in order to really reach a common system, and we need the European champions.
Right. Carlo?
Yeah, maybe one last thought. If you start investing, that there's a system law that says that a smart system is a smart client or servers on a not too smart infrastructure, like the internet, which is a smart client and servers on copper wire or glass fiber, which is very simple and predictable. And that's also how I see smart mobility. Smart cars on, and I don't say stupid infrastructure, but not too clever infrastructure. That's a modest and predictable kind of infrastructure. An autonomous car is by definition not depending on what the infrastructure does. So we should not think too much in classical infrastructure and invest a lot in that, but make the connectivity and also the smartness of the system best by investing in all these smart clients and servers. So it's not a traditional investment in infrastructure.
You've opened up a whole new area here, so I'm going to have to go back to Jacqueline just to get very quickly her response on that in terms of smart vehicles and not so smart infrastructure.
Well, I mean, I hope that I could emphasize a little bit. We are interested in smart infrastructure. We do not want to continue too much the way with the traditional infrastructure. We want to develop jointly services. We want to get smarter. We want really to benefit of the whole data set we can receive and also become part of those smart services. We are talking about digitalized services. We are talking about smart treating of and processing of data. So I can fully support Carlos.
No, that's the right angle. Don't start building all kind of machinery around your roads, but this is the kind of infrastructure you should invest in. So we end up agreeing.
Yeah, definitely.
So Herald, do you agree with that take and how much emphasis on the vehicle and the infrastructure?
Yes, I very much agree on that. I mean, it's very good to hear the different conclusions. Indeed, if I would wish, Kathy, I would like to see European champions on smart roads as far as they can be. I mean, in the new 20 legislation, we want to have all those monitoring, metering, smartness on whatever possible. But in particular, we have to get smart mobility as per our strategy. So by the end of this decade, at the latest, but perhaps there also that Christel was right, perhaps even earlier, we would like to see the CITS deployment in all the member states, not in 18 and not in limited projects. I mean, really, we have to have that ambition.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much indeed. There's some really, really good thoughts from all the different aspects in this whole issue of funding and investment. Thank you very much. And we're kind of straying into the sovereignty thing and the international approach, and that will lead us very nicely into our next session. So thank you. Because in an hour's time, we are going to be talking to people from around the world, find out what's happening in terms of CCAM in Japan, the US, South Korea, Singapore, Australia and New Zealand. So just to really get a sense of what sort of international cooperation there could be, at what point maybe cooperation can't happen, maybe there are competitive elements, we've got to look into that. So there's time now for some networking. We're going to, it's in half an hour, the next session. Did I say an hour? But I mean half an hour. So we're starting at 14:45 CET, so in half an hour's time. So there's just time to go and look at the virtual exhibition if you'd like to. So otherwise we will see you in half an hour. Thank you.